And I just wanted to go live for just a few moments because I've just been so grieved about what happened at that church yesterday up in Minneapolis. I believe it was a SBC church. Pastor seemed a real man of God that had a great response to what happened. I tried to put myself in his shoes about protesters coming into the church, and this is just a red line. It's just a red line. Whoever the people were that were behind it, because we always know there's people behind these things. Oftentimes, agent provocateurs, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, far left agitators and groups that somehow planned that. And you know that it was planned because you had Don Lemon there. And, Don Lemon, first of all, shouldn't have been there, shouldn't be agitating as a public figure like that. But I believe he might actually face some consequences for his actions, which he should. You got children, you got women and children inside churches. You have, just this last year, there have been several instances where there's been shootings or attempted shootings or people with holes and different things like that in churches. Just this last year in 2025, it happened several times. And that was an uptick. That was already extremely concerning. Not only are places of worship, of course, protected by our Constitution, but they were something that the founders greatly believed in: religious liberty, freedom. And we should never have to be concerned about a mob coming into church when we're worshiping our God. We should never have to worry about our safety in church. And when a nation gets to a point where that is something that is, where we are at right now, Israel's had to deal with this for many, many years. But in the United States, we're now in a position where a church has to be aware, has to have strong security teams, has to have contingency plans in order to make sure that we are able to keep the people worshiping safe. But to think about the evil, to think about how egregious it is that a group of people got together, organized, and said, hey, we're going to target this church. We're going to call the pastor an ICE agent. We're going to make a big spectacle. I think personally they did something very foolish because I think it's going to backfire on them. I think that I call them the thinking people, the thinking people. But people that are normal people that have brains, they're going to look and they're going to say, the left is crazy. The left is evil. The left is demonic. Why would they do something like this? And I think it's going to backfire on them because even people that are not on the right, even people that are centrist or, just independent or whatever, and I think some people on the left, to be quite frank, people like John F. Kennedy, Democrats, they're going to look and say, hey, that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. And I think that they're going to have a lot of backlash for it. But we, as a people, especially leaders in the church, need to push back against this. We need to condemn it publicly and say, hey, this is a red line. You can't come into houses of worship. It is not okay to condone that type of activity in a house of worship. That form of activity is only going to cause further violence, further safety issues. People are going to get killed. It's not going to be a good thing. And, no matter how adamant you are against ICE or, against deportation of people that are non-citizens, that are illegal here in the United States, you should never resort to going into somebody's house of worship and disrupting in that manner, because that is sacred territory, that is sacred space, that is holy ground, it's off limits. Families off limits, kids are off limits, churches are off limits. And people of God have the right to assemble and to do that in a way where they don't have to worry about some crazy people coming in and disrupting them and their ability to worship freely. So anyways, it would behoove us as Americans, especially as Christians, if Christian leadership all throughout the body of Christ would condemn what happened, would publicly come and condemn what happened and say, this is a red line. We do not want to see any more of this. The people that were behind this incident in Minneapolis need to be found out and dealt with in a way that they are held accountable to the law. And Don Lemon, shame on you. And anybody else involved, shame on you that you would go that low. And I think it's a red line for Americans. I think a lot of people are going to see just how evil and depraved some of these folks are that are pushing for violence in our streets, pushing for, you got to understand, the laws that have made non-citizens, illegal immigrants illegal, the laws that have made that were voted in, not by Republicans, but by Republicans and Democrats. You go back to, Obama, you go back to the Clinton administration, you go back throughout the years, Bush's, whoever it was, they all said the same thing when it came to enforcing the law of the land that was on the books, still on the books today, which means you got to go through the proper process to become a citizen. And during Obama, of course, we saw what we saw. It was awful. But during the Biden administration, millions and millions of people poured into our country, unvetted, undocumented, military-age men, people that we don't really know who they are. Many of them who do not like our country, do not want to assimilate into our country, do not want to abide by the laws of our land. And quite frankly, many of them are taking advantage of the system. And we've seen that the last few weeks with a lot of the exposure and things that are coming out. So, I think the people of the United States are awake. I think most people understand what's going on at this point. I think the majority of the people, whether they're on the right or the left, want law and order in their cities. I think they want to be able to go to the grocery store, to wherever it is that they need to go, to church, and not have to worry about a violent mob coming and not only disrupting their service or their ability to do things freely, but actually putting them in danger. And that is when things get highly concerning. And that looks like more of a communist tactic. And that's when you get into like Rules for Radicals and Saul Alinsky's playbook and Cloward and Piven of overwhelming the system and standing down, police officers standing down, being told to stand down by leftist politicians in order to get the maximum effect of whatever stunt that they're pulling. So anyways, please keep us in prayer, especially those that are out here taking a stand for our religious liberty and freedom. The pastors that are willing to speak out, and it's just surprising. I mean, the whole United States, very few people usually do. And we are in a pretty crazy battle for our nation, for our freedoms, for our religious liberty. And so we certainly need your prayers, and we appreciate your prayers. And thank you for tuning in this video. And I'll talk about it more, but I just want to come on record and let you to see my face and just express my sincere concern for what I saw yesterday happening up there in Minneapolis, which could technically happen anywhere in this country. And at no circumstance should our religious liberty, ability, freedom to gather and assemble to pray and worship our God be affected by a mob. That is wrong. That is not what the founders intended. And that is not what America is. So anyways, bless you guys. Thank you. Praying for your day. Have a wonderful day. And we'll talk some more very soon. God bless.